past few weeks, we've been hearing reports that there is typhoid in some parts of the country. Some people claiming to have fallen sick as a result of drinking municipal tap water as well. Authorities very quick to come out and dispel any kind of concerns. But let's try and get to the very latest on where we are with this. Professor Anthony Turton from the University of the Free State joining us. Prof, good morning to you. Always good to have you on the show here on ENCA. So how concerned are you about any typhoid in our water? What's your view on this?
Good morning to you and the listeners. Personally, I'm not that concerned about typhoid because I think it is an overhyped situation, although having said that, the NRCD is a credible body, and if they say something, I think they should be taken seriously. But personally, I believe that the numbers will be quite insignificantly low, but it doesn't mean to say that it's not important. What it does do, however, is it speaks to the greater problem that we have in our water supply chain, our water value chain. And that, of course, is the deteriorating quality of the water in our rivers and dams, which is attributable to a number of factors, but one of the most important factors is the discharge of untreated or partially treated sewage into our rivers every single day. We discharge over 5 billion litres of sewage into our water every day, and of that, only about 1 billion litres is actually treated to any reasonable standard. The other 4 billion litres are discharged untreated or at best partially treated. And the question that I would like to pose from the typhoid outbreak is how long do we expect to be able to discharge 5 billion litres of sewage every day into our rivers and dams, and then reticulate that back into society through water treatment plants that are battling at best to cope and in many cases are dysfunctional in some way or other. How long do we expect that to happen without some other form of outbreak other than typhoid from taking place?
Exactly, and this is what's got to be the question going forward as well. So right now, government and municipalities coming out saying no typhoid issue. But Prof, as you raise with all this sewage water, it's only a matter of time until we start seeing communities getting sick as well. Why, in your view, is the treatment of water not being done efficiently? A few years ago, I would have imagined that South Africa would be lauded for clean drinking water where it was accessible as clean drinking water.
Well, yes, there are different parts to that question, so let me just break it up quickly. The first part is that all drinking water standards in South Africa are defined by SANS 241. It's a national standard, and all municipalities and bulk water providers are obliged to supply water to that standard. So if water is supplied to SANS 241 standard, then it means that there are no pathogens and no other toxic elements to it, so it's quite safe to use. So that speaks now to the regulatory authority of the Department of Water and Sanitation, which has failed over the last couple of years because they've actually abolished what is known as the blue and green drop report, which now starts feeding into a growing mistrust. Let's call it a trust deficit. However, the real big issue is not really that issue. I think the real big issue is how long can we continue to discharge this untreated wastewater into our rivers? Because within all of our sewage flows, we have a whole range of things, and one of them is partially metabolized medication. So anyone that's ever been into any of the bulk retail outlets where there's a pharmacy involved, just look at the volume of medicines that are going out of the front door of that retail outlet. And all of those medicines, every single capsule and tablet is eventually going to go back through the wastewater, through the sewage, into the bulk water.
And when you say that you wonder how much longer we can keep going as well, would you have any professional guesses, any educated guesses how long that could be until we deal with that crisis?
Well, I think, how long is a piece of string? We can't really say how long it is, but what we can say is that the media always talks about the looming crisis. It's not a looming crisis. We're deep in the crisis. We've been deep in the crisis for a long period of time. So now the next step of the crisis is, when are we going to start seeing the outbreak of new things? And in fact, just recently, I read a very interesting article by R.W. Johnson. We all know that R.W. Johnson is a credible writer. And what most people don't realize is that R.W. Johnson lost a leg. And he lost the leg through a thing known as necrotizing fasciitis. And necrotizing fasciitis is a flesh-eating bacteria that he was exposed to in the lagoons down in KZN. So if we understand that now, that flesh-eating bacteria is probably far worse than the typhoid outbreak, but we have had some outbreaks of it in the Vaal River. We have had some outbreaks of it in the ocean at Mhlanga Rocks, where a medical doctor a while ago was busy surfing just in the open sea, and he was exposed to this necrotizing fasciitis story. So we have had outbreaks already in South Africa, relatively small, probably less than 20 cases in the country, maybe closer to 10, but nonetheless they are there. And this isn't just an indicator of the kind of situation we can expect, because remember, a river is a linear thing. It goes from point A to point B, and everything that happens along the way between point A and point B is accumulated in that river. So by the time the river discharges into the ocean, in many cases, there's not enough water left in the river, so there's a lagoon rather than an estuary, and that's where all of these things accumulate. And just one more thing that I'd like to say is that it's a very, very well-known phenomenon that if you have got partly metabolized medication in your wastewater, and then you've got pathogens growing in that wastewater or in the receiving water, the rivers, then that low dose of partly metabolized medication, all it does is it starts exposing those pathogens to the very medication that you use to treat them later on. And of course, that starts breeding a so-called multi-drug resistant pathogen. And we don't want to go into that place. So we're already seeing it now with TB, where you've got multi-drug resistant TB. And we don't want to start seeing other multi-drug resistance pathogens. And it gets back to this very basic, simple thing. Let's stop talking about the crisis. Let's start actually making action. Let's start doing things about preventing the daily discharge of 5 billion liters of sewage into our rivers every single day.
It's an astonishing number, Prof. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Of course, we'll follow that up here on ENC as well. Professor Anthony Turton from University of the Free State. It's the amount of wastewater which is of more concern to the professor, not necessarily these few cases of typhoid.